Hello students. I hope my lesson on the brutality of the orcs hasn't caused you undue stress. As horrible as they are still mortal. Like all of you, they are vulnerable to an arrow to the throat or a sword to the gut. The subject of today's class is a tad bit more tenacious. In most civilized lands, necromancy, the magical art of raising the dead, is understandably abhorred. Not only is it a disgusting practice to look upon, with your loved ones rising from the grave to serve a dark lord, but the summoning itself is generally a terrible thing to do to a soul. The soul is ripped away from whatever afterlife they are assigned to, stuffed into a formerly living vessel that are forced to work under the mastery of another, and usually lacking in some of the intelligence and free will they once had in life. Even if these bodies are destroyed, these souls may be unable to return to the place beyond, cursed to be spirits wailing in the dark, only to be reborn in another corpse by a necromancer's will. I should note that's not true for all undead summoned this way. A few, especially those of stronger will, retain some of their intelligence, and actually prefer undeath over whatever hell they were sent to. They serve the necromancer willingly, and are given a tad bit more power and independence than most. Now thankfully, necromancy is not something that can be easily learned, and can take decades if not centuries to master. It takes talent, skill, and an iron will. Talent born of a proud bloodline, or just luck at birth, skill gained through endless practice and the study of ancient and forbidden tomes, and an iron will to prevent you from going completely insane. The ability to control life and death can be a bit mentally taxing. All of that is just the internal struggle a novitiate necromancer must go through. The external struggle is everyone else on Mantica wanting you dead. The noble ones wanting to remove your evil from existence, the greedy ones wanting to exchange your head for coin, and your fellow necromancers who are probably eyeing your tomes of power. Still, if you are capable of surviving all of these trials, the rewards are immense. If you are smart with your abilities, you can essentially become immortal, always having some hidden spell or secret ritual to return you to unlife if an enemy strikes you down, not to mention the hordes of undead minions under your beck and call. There are, of course, the traditional stacks of skeletons you would find in any necromancer's armies. I believe they are the easiest undead to raise, probably because of the lack of flesh. While they are the most common, they also tend to be the weakest in terms of strength and skill, but they more than make up for it in numbers. They can form into the traditional skeleton warriors in silent formations, attacking in synchronized if predictable patterns. There are also the skeleton archers. One alone couldn't hit the broadside of a giant, but a few hundred is sure to cause significant damage. Skeletons can also be ordered to man balefire catapults, siege engines formed from discarded catapults left on old battlefields, which I believe makes them the skeletons of catapults. I never really understood the logic of it, but you know how it is with magic. And honestly, those that catapult attacks are more worried about the screeching, exploding skulls it uses as ammunition than whether it should exist or not. As the necromancer grows in power, they are able to raise stronger skeletons such as revenants, who were former heroes, royal guards, and elite warriors. And if they are truly lucky and skilled, they can raise revenant kings that they can use as generals. These once living leaders have enough intelligence to remember some of their former tactics and strategies, and thus can work a little more independently, allowing the necromancer to shift their attention elsewhere. Unlike skeletons, zombies don't usually need the focus of a necromancer in order to be raised. As long as dark magic is in play, those who have recently deceased will rise on their own. The attached souls who haven't had a chance to leave to the next world, stuck inside their formerly living bodies and watching as they kill their loved ones. On occasion, the necromancer can create a zombie troll, extremely difficult to do considering the troll's ability to regenerate, but an extremely powerful creature if the necromancer is able to do it. There are also some bestial zombie undead, such as death packs, which are hordes of zombie beasts, and gore blights, which are stitched together necromantic cast-offs. Horrible to behold, and even more horrible to have unleashed upon you. Truly powerful necromancers can, of course, summon truly powerful undead. Wraiths, for example, are the souls of the enemies of necromancers that have been cursed. Forced to become spirits in tattered cloaks and carrying deadly scythes, these terrifying forms are unleashed on those they once defended. There are also wights, legendary and brutal souls who, for whatever reason, never moved on to the other side. Powered by the blood of thousands they slayed in life, they appear in ghostly armor wielding massive two-handed spirit swords. And if the necromancer proves himself worthy and has good relations with Ophidia, they may gain the ability to acquire a few mummies, one of the most physically powerful undead due to the ancient methods of preservation used on their bodies. What is Ophidia? I had meant to go over that nation in a future class about the kingdoms of men, but I guess a brief glimpse is in order. Now remember how I mentioned that necromancy is abhorred in most nations? Well, Ophidia is the exception. It is a nation where everything from necromancy to demonology is practiced. Here, necromancers are treated with high status, almost worshipped by the common man there. Those lower class folk believing that being raised as an undead is a form of immortality. As I said, I will speak more of Ophidia in the future, but know that it is a place of great power and influence, and also a place where some of the horrors of the world may have originated from, such as ghouls and vampires. Now, if necromancy is studied in a place long enough, it has a tendency to corrupt the area around it, the dark magic congealing and slowly permeating the very land. Now, the necromancer is generally safe from this corruptive miasma, but his or her servants, not so much. It is theorized that the first ghouls, the half-living, half-undead cannibalistic monsters, were former Ophidian servants who once served these noble necromancers. Over generations, they slowly turned into the ghoulish creatures we know now. Soon enough, these abominations spread out across Mantica, turning cemeteries, mausoleums, and dank caves into dens where they consume the dead around them. Each of these dens tend to be ruled by a corpse mother, a corpulent female ghoul that greedily devours most of the flesh the ghouls gather, and whose commands are followed almost religiously. If a necromancer desires the services of ghouls, it is usually through her. If negotiations are successful, the necromancer gains the control of an army of ghouls, usually led by a ghast, ghouls who have eaten enough mortal flesh that they can no longer be considered even remotely human. During the God War, when it became obvious the wicked gods were going to lose, the wicked god Akshunarha made a deal with the priests of Ophidia. She would give them the knowledge of necromancy. In return, she would be allowed to split her soul into the prepared bodies of 13 recently deceased nobles, mummified in separate pyramids, to await the day when she would rise again against an unprepared world. And her plan might have succeeded, if not for the war with Winter. During that time, the nations of the world somehow became aware of her plans, and sent forces to assault those pyramids, seeking to destroy the mummies in their crypts. They were able to destroy 10, each destroyed body obliterating a portion of the wicked goddess's soul, but also enraging and empowering the remaining pieces. It was only when those forces arrived at the final 3 that the pieces of those souls finally awoke. The creatures born that day, insane due to their early resurrection and the shattering of their linked souls, unleashed themselves on the attacking army, killing them all. After that, the 3 creatures split off into different directions. No one knows where they went, and they have not been seen since, but their offspring are well known. Offspring we now know as vampires. Vampires are preternaturally strong, fast, and near immortal, and also natural necromancers. The strongest of them can even survive the burning and dismemberment that is usually the weakness of undead. and they can command armies of the dead with an ease most mortal necromancers could only dream of. However, these advantages have their price. Their bodies can be prone to bizarre afflictions, like the fear of running water, or death by the touch of sunlight. A few smell like charnel houses, can take on permanent bestial forms, or can be cursed with bouts of guilt which might drive some of them quite mad. Still, despite these bizarre symptoms, and the lack of a soul, many foolish mortals would love nothing more than to be touched by a vampire's kiss, which is why it is not uncommon to see a vampire surrounded by so many willing thralls. Since vampires tend to only turn those they consider worthy, the most common form of vampire you will see are former human nobles, somehow more vain and arrogant than they were in life. These soul reavers ride down their foe on well-bred mounts before returning to their estates to consume their victim's blood. They are usually led by a vampire patriarch, the oldest of their kind, and possibly the one who had turned them in the first place. I should also quickly mention werewolves. Humans cursed to be man-wolf hybrids who, as far as I am aware, are not technically undead, but can still be found in undead armies. Besides necromancers and vampires, you might also find powerful creatures such as lich kings and great pharaohs leading undead armies. There is little time to discuss them here, so I'll leave them for another class when I discuss another army of undeath. The biggest problem when dealing with necromancy is that it isn't one nation or organization or race. It is a curse that can appear anywhere. Wherever there is an ambitious soul looking for immortality, wherever there is an ancient temple that has been breached by foolish treasure seekers, wherever there is a place of such death that necromantic magic becomes concentrated, there is the potential for the rise of the undead. Many are the stories of undead nearly toppling the world, and most sadly agree that we will be hearing those stories for centuries to come. Well, students, that's enough about the evils of the world for now. Let's speak of a more pleasant topic. Next class, we will speak of the forces of nature. Hey guys, I hope you're doing well during these strange pandemic times, and I hope you enjoyed this video about the Undead in the Kings of War universe. If you like it, please like, subscribe, comment, press the little bell so you know whenever I post, etc, etc. And if you really like it, and if you have the time and even the money, I know times are tough now, but please consider sending a little money my way. The extra money gives me the time I need to work on these stories that I love. And anyway, thanks for listening/watching, and see you next time.